Gemma Chan, who plays Bess of Hardwick, said, I was warned when I left drama school that a lot of the UK's film and TV output is period drama, and there was absolutely no way I'd get roles. I think Hamilton was described as America then, played by America now. This is England then, portrayed by England now. It's about time. Hello, it's me Kyron. Thank you so much for joining me for yet another video. If this is your first time, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I know I've been away for a while. I'll talk about that later in the video when I'm closing up. Recently, there was a TV show that came out, a miniseries about the famed Queen Anne Boleyn, and I love Anne Boleyn. I always have. I love this story. I think it's such an interesting story. And as I was discussing it with one of my really good friends, he said something that kind of surprised me. He said, like, the decision to cast Anne Boleyn with a black actress was obviously political. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know if I would say it's political because, well, black people exist. And yes, of course companies are gonna include diversity in their stories because we live in a time where diversity is a big deal, where we want to see more representation for minority groups. But I think something about the way he said it was for diversity, it was for woke points, like it was just a political move. It just didn't sit right with my spirit, and I was trying to figure out why. And you know, like, I look at it and a lot of people say, well, they think about historical accuracy when they look at these films and TV shows about historical figures. They want historical accuracy, and they think that the idea of a non-white person, for example, playing a white historical figure is, well, it's ahistorical, and they think that it's jarring. A lot of the times they say that it's a jarring experience and it takes them out of the story. Josie Rogue, director of Mary, Queen of Scots, said, diverse casting is very influenced by my theatre background, where that sort of thing is done. When I sat down with the studio early, before we got down to a lot of stuff, I said to them, just so you know, I'm not going to direct an all-white period drama. That's not something I'm going to do. And they were really hugely supportive of that. So this movie had a lot of diversity in it. I used the Gemma Chan quote early in this video because she was in that movie. It had lots of different people in it, and I wonder if anything was taken away from the story the way people make it sound. What is the actual harm if some of the characters are non-white? We all know that Queen Elizabeth and Mary Queen of Scots were not of color. We knew that they were white. It's set in that period, but what's taken away from it? And again, the argument seems to be historical accuracy. But when you think of period pieces, often the language used in period pieces is historically inaccurate. If you listen to Shakespeare, have you ever tried to read like Macbeth or any of Shakespeare's plays? Like, if you're not familiar with the language, it's really difficult to understand. But we could understand a director or a writer making the decision to update the language so that it could be more accessible to us, but we somehow can't seem to use that same logic to accept that, okay, they cast some characters as non-white because it's more reflective of the modern world. So we're willing to accept modernity when it comes to language so that it could be easy for us, but we're not willing to accept modernity in terms of the actual demographics of the world or of the country that the film is based on in the present. And I feel like the unwillingness to accept that, it seems suspicious to me. My goal was to capture in the design the way in which I imagined the essence of Marie Antoinette's spirit. So the film's candy colors, its atmosphere, and teenage music all reflect and are meant to evoke how I saw that world from Marie Antoinette's perspective. So this is another example of a story that does things a little different. Like, if we're going by historical accuracy, then I suppose a film about Marie Antoinette should just all be in French because it was set in pre-revolutionary France. So it should just be French people speaking French all the way through. But no, we understand, like, you want English speakers to access it because it was an English director and an English speaking cast. So we understand that it was in English. So yeah, again, we're willing to accept historical inaccuracy for that, but we're not willing to accept historical inaccuracy for a lot of other things. And I don't know, it's weird. But what we gather from what Sofia Coppola is saying is that there were creative decisions made in the film. So it was historically inaccurate, sure, but that was because she had a certain vision for the character. She wanted to tell a very particular kind of story. And she used the vessel of Marie Antoinette and the anachronistic music and everything about the film, the aesthetic of the film. She wanted to make that character accessible and understandable to modern audiences. So yes, there are anachronisms. Yes, there are converses in the film. Yes, the music is weird. But that was because she was kind of going for a different feel, a different aesthetic. And while it's historically inaccurate, it did serve a purpose. And I suppose she tried to make Marie Antoinette relatable. Now, we could discuss how far she took that relatability, because she kind of made Marie Antoinette into Serena van der Woodsen in pre-revolutionary France. And, you know, maybe that's an overly sympathetic representation of who Marie Antoinette was, because it's like she was just flitting about being rich and young and pretty and all of these different things, and she wasn't paying attention to what was happening around her. So maybe that's overly sympathetic on Sofia Coppola's part, but that was the story that she wanted to tell, and I could understand given that artistic license to her to tell the story that she really wanted to tell. According to Anne Boleyn director Lindsay Miller, the decision to cast Turner Smith was on the basis of finding an actress who best embodied the spirit of Anne. It was incredibly freeing not to be bound by physical preconceptions, she explained in a statement released on behalf of Channel 5. So as I said, I love Anne Boleyn, I always have. So I was really excited to see this version because anything involving Anne, I'm gonna watch it. And I was excited to watch it and to see that there was a woman whose complexion was so similar to mine playing one of my favorite historical figures. I thought it was really interesting and I was excited to see it. So of course you had detractors saying that, you know, why is Anne being played by a black woman? Why are there so many diverse people in the background or playing these different roles? Like, they made an issue of it. And I don't think Anne Boleyn's race is so important to the story, because in the story, we all know that Anne Boleyn, as I said, was white. We all know that. Now, if you changed Anne's gender, I think you'd be telling a very different story, because a significant part of what makes the story of Anne Boleyn so relevant is the fact that she was a woman in this period who had finessed her way into becoming the Queen of England, and she was meant to produce a male heir. That was her role. She was meant to produce that, and she couldn't do it. And that's what ultimately led to her destruction, because she couldn't fulfill her part of the bargain when it came to her marriage to King Henry VIII. So I could understand if somebody felt like changing the genders would be a big deal, but nobody's doing that because the gender is so important to this particular character and to this particular story. But the race isn't as important, so saying that it's an issue, I don't know, it just feels weird. In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. A while back, there was a really good TV show based on one of Jane Austen's unfinished novels, Sanditon, and they had a black character in it, and I was really excited because it was nice. Jane Austen is my favorite writer, and it was nice to see a TV show based on one of her works that had a black character in it, and not just a black character, but a black character who was an heiress, which was something that we hadn't seen before. She had a lot of money, and it put her in a strange social position because that's not what you would expect of somebody who's black in the 1800s. And I felt like that was so interesting. And I think that if we allowed more pieces to come out featuring black people that aren't just about them being servants or the enslaved or anything like that, and we allow them to play kings and queens and princes and princesses and lords and ladies and everything, you know, that would be cool. But when we hide behind things like it's jarring to have somebody of color playing a role in a period piece, it makes me think about if I were to go to, let's say, a Jane Austen themed event, would somebody say it was jarring for me to be there because if I dressed like a gentleman in the Regency era, like they do in Bridgerton, would somebody say that it was weird for me to be there because that probably wouldn't have happened? You know, I don't know how I feel about that. I think that it's an excuse. And in this era of different representation for different groups, I think we should be aspiring to having more people playing more roles. But that's just my opinion. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end of this video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. To my subscribers who've been with me, I know I've been AWOL for the last 2 months. I didn't realize how much time flew by, but I think I also needed a bit of time to sit down and reflect on my channel. After a year of making videos, I've now been making videos for just over a year, and I didn't realize that time really flew by, and I had to think about the future of my channel and what I wanted it to look like. You know, what content I want to put out. I have a list of videos that I want to put out talking about any number of different topics, but I also have to think about appeasing the algorithm because I would love my channel to grow and for my content to reach more people. But I also want to make the videos that I like about topics that are interesting to me, like this one. But these types of videos take time to research stuff, and I have to do all the editing and the scripting, and you know, I have to carve out the time to film, and I have a full-time job as well. So I had to think about the future of my channel and what I wanted to do. So hopefully I'll be able to find a balance in year 2 of content that I really enjoy and content that appeases the algorithm. So wish me luck, and thank you so much for making it to the end. Bye bye.